Shock, Chawama winner faces complaint after opposition victory just days after the Chawama by-election. The controversy is far from over. The Forum for Democracy and Development, FDD, says it is preparing a formal complaint, challenging how the election was conducted. What exactly are they alleging? And could this complaint shake confidence in the outcome? Shock, Chawama winner faces complaint after opposition victory. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of the InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, what a week it's been across the continent. Stories of triumph, stories of controversy, and today, a story that perfectly captures the volatile nature of grassroots politics in southern Africa. Our lead story today: a stunning electoral upset in Zambia's Chawama constituency has descended into chaos, as the very victory that was supposed to represent democratic change now faces legal challenges that threaten to unravel everything. Picture this. The streets of Chawama, a sprawling constituency in Lusaka, erupt in celebration. An opposition candidate has done the unthinkable, defeated the ruling party in what many considered an impregnable stronghold. The jubilation is electric. The victory is historic. But beneath the surface of those celebrations, something sinister is already brewing. Because here's where it gets interesting: what happens when a democratic victory becomes the very weapon used to question democracy itself? When does celebration turn to contestation? How does a winner become a defendant before they've even taken office? And in a political landscape already fractured by deep mistrust between ruling and opposition forces, could this complaint in Chawama be the spark that ignites something far more dangerous? What really happened in those voting stations? Were the rules followed, or were they bent? And perhaps most critically, in a young democracy still finding its footing, who gets to decide what constitutes a fair fight when both sides claim the moral high ground? The answers to these questions could determine not just who represents Chawama, but whether the electoral process itself can withstand the weight of partisan warfare. Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light within hours of the final results being announced. This story originates from Chawama constituency, one of Lusaka's most densely populated and politically significant electoral districts. The constituency has long been considered a weather vane for political sentiment in Zambia's capital region, a place where economic anxieties meet political aspirations in a volatile mix. The election took place as part of a scheduled by-election, triggered after the seat became vacant under circumstances that themselves had generated controversy. Campaign season had been intense, with the ruling party deploying significant resources to retain what they viewed as historically friendly territory, while the opposition saw an opportunity to make a statement ahead of future general elections. On election day, voting proceeded across multiple polling stations scattered throughout the constituency. Initial reports suggested a high turnout, with long queues forming before dawn. As the day progressed, both parties claimed momentum, each projecting confidence to their supporters and the media. When results began trickling in that evening, a pattern emerged that shocked political observers. The opposition candidate was not just competing, they were winning, and winning decisively. Station after station reported margins that defied pre-election polling. By the time the Electoral Commission of Zambia made the official announcement, the opposition had secured victory with a margin that left no room for a recount under normal circumstances. The winning candidate's acceptance speech was delivered to a euphoric crowd, promising a new chapter of accountability and development for Chawama. International observers issued preliminary statements commending the peaceful conduct of the poll. But even as celebrations continued into the night, a different narrative was being constructed behind closed doors. Within the ruling party's campaign headquarters, strategists were already combing through voting records, examining procedural reports, and consulting with legal advisors. The initial shock of defeat was rapidly transforming into a calculated counteroffensive. Less than 48 hours after the results were certified, official notification was filed with the electoral authorities. A formal complaint had been lodged against the Chawama winner, alleging multiple violations of electoral law that, if proven, could nullify the entire result. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. The complaint itself makes for explosive reading, and much of the testimony from both sides has now entered the public domain. According to the official complaint document filed by the ruling party's legal representative, the allegations are comprehensive and damning. the lead attorney stated in their filed affidavit. We present to this commission evidence of systematic and deliberate violations of the Electoral Code of Conduct that fundamentally compromised the integrity of this election. These are not minor technical infractions, these are substantial breaches that affected the free will of voters in multiple polling stations across the constituency. The document continues with specific allegations. In a section addressing voter intimidation, the complaint reads, on the day of voting, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4 p.m., agents of the opposition candidate were observed and reported to have engaged in activities designed to intimidate voters sympathetic to the ruling party. These activities included, but were not limited to, aggressive confrontation at polling station entrances, verbal harassment of identified party members, and the strategic positioning of vehicles bearing opposition insignia in patterns that violated the designated neutral zones around voting centers. The complaint also addresses campaign finance allegations. Our investigation has uncovered evidence suggesting that the opposition candidate exceeded the statutory spending limits prescribed for constituency-level campaigns. Financial records and witness testimony indicate expenditures on transportation, printed materials, and public gatherings that far surpass the legal threshold. This provided an unfair advantage that corrupted the level playing field essential to democratic competition. But the opposition's response has been equally forceful. In a press conference held at their party headquarters, the victorious candidate addressed the media directly. Transcripts of that exchange reveal the raw emotion and defiance characterizing their position. Journalist, how do you respond to these allegations that your campaign violated electoral law? Candidate, look, let me be very clear about something. These allegations are, they are nothing more than the desperate actions of a party that cannot accept the will of the people. The people of Chawama spoke loudly, they spoke clearly, and what we're seeing now is an attempt to use legal technicalities to overturn a democratic mandate. Journalist, but specifically on the question of campaign finance, can you account for your spending? Candidate, absolutely. Every kwacha spent by this campaign has been documented. Every expense was approved. Every receipt has been kept. We ran a grassroots campaign powered by small donations and volunteer energy. If they want to audit us, fine. Audit away. They won't find any violations because there aren't any. What they will find is that we simply outorganized them, outworked them, and outconnected with the voters. Journalist, what about the allegations of voter intimidation? Candidate, that's actually laughable if it wasn't so serious. So, we're supposed to believe that our party, which has been systematically marginalized and, sometimes harassed during campaigns, suddenly had the power to intimidate voters? The ruling party controls most of the local administration. They have resources we can only dream of. And now they want to claim they were intimidated? It's projection. Pure projection. Meanwhile, voters from Chawama have also begun speaking out. One resident, who identified herself only as Grace for fear of repercussions, told local media, "We voted with our hearts. We voted for change. Nobody forced us. Nobody intimidated us. We made our choice freely, and now they want to take that choice away from us with lawyers and paperwork. It's not right. It's not democracy." However, a ruling party supporter offered a contrasting perspective in a separate interview. There were things happening at my polling station that didn't feel right. People were, watching who went in, watching how long you took. There was this pressure in the air. I can't prove anything, but I felt it. Others felt it too. Maybe the complaint has merit. Maybe things weren't as clean as they're saying. Electoral officials have maintained a studied neutrality. The Electoral Commission's chief spokesperson released a statement that read in part, "The Commission acknowledges receipt of the complaint and assures all stakeholders that it will be investigated thoroughly and impartially. We are committed to the integrity of the electoral process and will follow the procedures established by law. Both parties will be given opportunity to present evidence and testimony. A timeline for resolution will be announced once preliminary investigations are complete. Deeper analysis, implications and reactions." This complaint in Chawama represents far more than a dispute over one constituency seat. It's a microcosm of the broader challenges facing democracy across the African continent. Political analysts have been quick to weigh in on the implications. Dr. Mambuna Sidali, a political science professor at the University of Zambia, offered this assessment. What we're witnessing is the weaponization of electoral law. Now, I'm not saying the complaint is without merit that will be determined through proper investigation. But the pattern we're seeing is concerning. Whenever an opposition party achieves an unexpected victory, there's almost immediately a legal challenge. This creates a chilling effect on democratic participation and feeds cynicism among voters who begin to wonder if their votes actually matter. From the ruling party's perspective, however, the complaint is entirely justified. A senior party official, speaking on condition of anonymity, argued, "Democracy isn't just about voting, it's about rules. Everyone has to follow the same rules. If those rules were broken, then the result is tainted, regardless of the margin of victory. We're not against opposition victories when they're legitimate. But we have a responsibility to ensure that legitimacy. That's what we're doing here." The legal questions raised are genuinely complex. Zambian electoral law does provide for challenges based on campaign violations, but the burden of proof is high. The complainant must demonstrate not just that violations occurred, but that they were significant enough to have affected the outcome. Given the decisive margin of victory, that's a substantial hurdle. Constitutional lawyer Mwamba Chilishi explained the legal landscape. The Electoral Code does enumerate specific prohibited practices, including exceeding spending limits and engaging in intimidation. However, proving these allegations requires substantial evidence, documentary proof, multiple corroborating witnesses, forensic financial analysis. Allegations alone are insufficient. The question becomes, does the ruling party have this evidence, or is this a fishing expedition designed to delegitimize the result regardless of whether the complaint succeeds? International observers have also reacted with caution. A representative from the Southern African Development Community's Electoral Observation Mission noted, "Our preliminary findings indicated a generally peaceful and well-conducted election in Chawama. However, we acknowledge that our observation has limitations. We cannot monitor every interaction, every transaction, every moment of a campaign. If credible evidence of violations emerges, it must be investigated. What concerns us is when the electoral dispute mechanism becomes an automatic reflex rather than a genuine accountability tool." The timing of this complaint also raises questions. With general elections on the horizon, both parties are posturing not just for Chawama but for national audiences. The ruling party needs to demonstrate it will not accept what it views as rule-breaking, even if that means appearing to be poor losers. The opposition needs to defend its victory vigorously to maintain momentum and credibility. There's also the issue of historical context. Zambia has experienced democratic transitions of power, which distinguishes it from many African nations. However, those transitions have often been accompanied by tension, dispute, and occasionally violence. The health of Zambian democracy depends significantly on how these electoral disputes are handled. Whether they're resolved through credible legal processes or whether they deepen into cycles of accusation and counter-accusation that erode public trust. Local civil society organizations have called for calm and patience. A joint statement from the Zambia Council for Social Development and the Foundation for Democratic Process urged, "We appeal to both political parties to respect the institutions established to handle electoral disputes. We appeal to their supporters to maintain peace while investigations proceed. And we appeal to the Electoral Commission and Judiciary to act swiftly and transparently so that uncertainty does not become a breeding ground for conflict." What remains unresolved is perhaps the most critical question: what will happen if the complaint succeeds? Would there be a rerun election? Would the seat be awarded to the ruling party candidate who came second? Or would some other remedy be imposed? The legal framework provides some guidance, but much would depend on the specific findings of fact. And hovering over all of this is the specter of precedent. How Chawama is resolved will influence how future electoral disputes are handled. It will send signals about what tactics are acceptable, what standards of evidence are required, and whether the system can handle partisan competition without collapsing into perpetual litigation. So there you have it, viewers. The story of Chawama, or a moment of democratic celebration, has transformed into yet another test of Africa's electoral systems. This story is still unfolding. Investigations are ongoing. Evidence is being gathered and evaluated. And the people of Chawama wait to see whether their votes will stand or whether they'll be called back to the polls. What do you think? Was this complaint legitimate scrutiny of electoral integrity, or is it an attempt to overturn the will of the people through legal maneuvering? How should democracies balance the need for electoral rules with the need to respect voter choice? And what does this tell us about the state of democracy not just in Zambia, but across the continent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you, whether you're in Lusaka, Lagos, Nairobi, or anywhere else. Your perspective matters. Thank you so much for watching this edition of InspirAfrica Official. We'll be following this story closely and bringing you updates as they develop. There's never a dull moment in African politics, and we'll be here to break it all down for you. I'm Nakash, and I'll see you again tomorrow with more stories that matter. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep questioning. Take care.